far more informed, aware, and equipped to tackle the inevitable change climate and perhaps its not so good repercussions. I'm very excited about today's episode, and I'll tell you why. But before I begin, let me share with you an interesting observation that I was thinking about a few days back, and one you will perhaps agree with. Given the New Year's were around, we had indulged in a lot of board games, I believe. Think of Monopoly, think of Catan as zero sum games or competitions. One player wins a clear victory over the others. But if you think about climate change, we are all in it together as a collective audience or recipients. But since climate change board games emphasize teamwork and group success, either all player wins or no one does clearly win, right? It's a very different experience. And this is exactly how I felt when I played City Atlas, a game where you decarbonize New York City by building carbon neutral energy, a very unique one of its kind board game. That experience really taught me the role of multi stakeholder collaboration firsthand. I love that experience. It really helped me create a sense of agency, where as a group we were encouraged to creatively problem solve, collaborate, and we could see the influence of our individual decisions over the other party or overall collectively. I never knew a board game could be such a warm up to what it really means like dealing with climate change in a real life scenario. Well, that's exactly why I'm very excited about today's episode because I have with me Deepak Sridhar, who works with the City Atlas team, join us today. Hello, Deepak. Thank you for joining us today. It's such a pleasure to have you finally playing the game myself with you around a couple of months back. I really wanted to have you on the show. And like I said, thank you so much for taking out time for this episode.
Thanks, Mega. Thank you for inviting me and having me on the show.
Amazing. So, Deepak, I have so many questions that I have listed down, and the idea of this episode was to have listeners understand that gaming, even board games can have such a profound effect on people who are playing to understand how climate change is actually and what role can they play or different parties play, firsthand. And City Atlas, like I said in my context, is such an amazing manifestation of that. So I just wanted to right into it. You have been with the City Atlas Energetic for some time now. Can you please help me understand how did this idea come to being?
Yeah, definitely. By the way, one clarification is that City Atlas is the organization, and the
Yeah.
game that's created is called Energetic. So the mission of City Atlas itself, is to help New Yorkers understand and prepare for the future of the city. So and all cities actually. So and this could be in kind of in line with this is definitely in line with what's described in the reports of the New York City Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, C40.org, and all to strengthen the democratic process towards equitable responses to climate change. Around 2015, and I wasn't part of the City Atlas team then. The team was working intensely on the issue of sea level rise, and as we all know, New York City, like any coastal city, is also vulnerable. As per data from the city government, and something that I found very interesting is that sea level has risen by about 1 feet since 1900, and with potential for it to cross 5 feet by 2100. So, to help us understand what it means, imagine a Sandy like storm. And if that would occur in the 2050s, which is 3 decades from now, this would cause about $90 billion in damage and economic loss, which is 5 times the type of an impact that Sandy had back then. So, around 2015, the team was looking into the steps that the city needs to take to tackle sea level rise and started focusing on energy. What would it take to run New York City on renewable energy? How to build? How much would it take? And where would it go? Let's say you make everything electric and you generate electricity without producing any CO2. Most people see only one half of the picture here. And if you take windmills, for example, or any other tech or production technology that needs to go in, you are seeing the side which refers just to being able to create this. The other entire half of this is about storage. How do you picture storage? How do you understand the relevance of storage? What does it mean, the unpredictability of it, and the opportunities around it? So, to help picturize, help visualize and to help people actually understand the full big picture. Say with windmills, to help people understand what do you do, how do you manage storage when the wind is not blowing, which no one was explaining. To kind of explain all this, we decided to make a game and use it to explain what NYC's energy system could actually look like.
Interesting, Deepak, because as a layman, and you were talking about storage, right? Like as a layman, I would have never thought about it, or perhaps would have no opportunity to be exposed to that side of the workings, right? So, and gets me to my next question: how do you think climate education games enhance student engagement and understanding of complex topics like climate change and energy sustainability? And not just students, in fact, I think anybody who's sort of playing it, right? So how do you think board games can have that kind of role?
This is a fantastic question. One of the biggest challenges for as of today is that, and something that we were talking or chatting even before this podcast,
Mhm.
right, is a lot of people actually know about the type of challenges with climate change, but people are not willing to talk about this. It just is very difficult for people to talk about it because the type of a role that each person needs to play by themselves, the type of self accountability that is actually required, makes it very challenging, especially in the light of hard situations where my actions can be highly noticed. So even if it means it's highly positive ones. Take a very simple example that amongst a group of friends, I'm the only one who does recycling, and we are out on a trip. And then if I have to hold on to a piece of plastic or paper that I need to recycle, or if I go in search of a recycling bin, I'm very conscious that the group is actually waiting for me, and if it's like really close friends, a bunch of people also start teasing me. So there is actually quite a bit of pressure in wanting in having to do the right things. So there is this challenges that actually comes from participating in the live world and helping a bunch of people around us to come be a big part of it, to help the wider group of people, right? Like if I want my friends also to kind of understand why this is important, and in my own life I have tried to explain this. And a couple of decades ago my friends would like simply brush me away, or laugh at me and make fun of me, and this was not that they would be insulting me, but
Mm.
it's just that I think they would not fully comprehend what I was trying to say. And it just was easier as a group to function, for the friends group to function by actually just making fun of one another.
Yeah.
Right. So with all these kinds of scenarios, to kind of get to shift people onto pathways where people actually understand the significance of climate in their lives, board games in general, and board games, whether it's students, whether it's adults, the biggest thing that it allows is participation. I can't think of an alternative other than a board game like ours, or other well-designed games that allows for you to actually take a bunch of decisions and then take a bunch of steps into the future, not just in the next year or two, but go 10, 15, 20, 25 years down the line and see how your decisions is going to play out. And all of this, when it is actually set within what real life looks like, but you're playing it on a board game, you begin to see the type of decisions that you took, and the type of an impact those particular decisions have. You see how strategy is going to unfold. You see the type of impacts that may or may not happen. You see how there is so much of uncertainty around us. So the one word again, that comes to me when I think about creating engagement and developing an understanding of these type of complex topics is from participation. So that's number one. Number two, and what this simulation and thinking into the future also really helps us understand is the connection and the interdependencies between different systems. One way of doing it, is to run through like some type of a computer aided modeling.
Mm.
But again, a lot of those tend to be more academic oriented or perhaps industry or application oriented. But think of the common person, think of the lay person, think of my parents, right? Think of my family members and my friends, and to help them understand how systems around us are interconnected, how the decisions we can actually take can actually play, have a role, like play a role in impacting other systems around us. and how that can actually come back and then impact us today or in the future. Those are made possible, those are made easy by these type of games. And lastly, on this particular topic, for me, one of the most critical things is helping developing an understanding of what we don't know, and why or why not, to mess or to not mess with it, right? And there's a bunch of things that we actually don't know. Science, as of today, is able to help us actually understand a bunch of things reasonably well, especially in situations where um, for instance, right, 2024, we saw a lot of heat impacts. Did science tell us that we are going to see heat impacts? Yes. Were we kind of prepared in a way? Perhaps. But did we still kind of hit through a lot of challenges in spite of what we knew? Yes, it was just a bunch of crazy situations where no amount of preparation could have perhaps completely helped us actually deal with it, because societies are complex, cities are complex, systems are complex, climate is complex. So just to kind of call out and say that there's a bunch of things that we don't know, right? And to help label it and to help identify and acknowledge and feel what we don't know is also important. And to me, these type of games really help surface and acknowledge that, oh my
Mm.
god, there's like a bunch of things that we don't know.
Yeah.
So it plays a big hand in both helping actually create that bit of knowledge and show this bit of connections between different systems by type of playing something that has strong futuristic elements, while also recognizing that there is a lot of uncertainty and unknowns embedded in the entire system that we are players in.
Yeah, and I loved your answer, Deepak. And what I hear is, and that's perhaps also something that I experienced while I played that game, was it broke down the complex idea of something like decarbonization. It broke it down into such simple, how should I put it, in a very simple manner, so that as a layman I could also understand how it really works. And as an individual, like you spoke about accountability, right? As an individual, what my actions, what repercussions can that have, like simple aspect of cause and effect. And and that makes me think, how do you then design? I mean, there must be a lot of thinking and thought process about really designing these games, right? So what are some important factors to consider when designing gamified learning like this, so that the end user is really learning and taking away something which is really really going to stay with them, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So um, perhaps a portion of my answer is also based on all the insights that we have gathered as of today,
Mm-hmm.
based on what and a combination of what also went into designing Energetic. So Energetic itself was designed in 2018, and I wasn't part of the team then. However, I've had the opportunity to talk with the primary team that actually worked on this design. So I'll hopefully be able to cover a combination of the intentionality back then as well as what we've realized are super important as of today. So one of the most important things is that it needs to be matched to the real world,
Mm-hmm.
and this is especially when you think about these particular games going beyond the context of entertainment. So this is not about helping establish fantasy. It's not about exploring fantasies and any incentives around that either, and then bringing out all these particular elements of joy and fun that many games have do such a beautiful job on providing it. But rather with, say, games like Energetic, and especially to help people come participate and be part of the journey today, be part of journey in the next few moments and next few years and beyond. And really, I just keep repeating the word participation because that is so absolutely essential. And if all of those need to happen, people need to see connections with the real world. So bringing in scenarios, bringing in data, bringing in the type of reactions that we expect to see, and allowing for possibilities of new types of reactions to be introduced when people are actually playing the game are really critical. Secondly, as I said earlier as well, we need for people to understand the connections between different systems, and for obvious reasons, especially within the context of sustainability, helping people understand the impact of climate, the type of systems thinking that is needed to solve problems is quite important. So we should design the game in such a way that we are able to help players establish those particular connections between different systems within the game, and then they're able to apply that particular learning to their own lives, to their own jobs,
Mm.
after they play the game. Then something important is that there has to be not just doomsday or doom type
Yeah.
scenarios, but also a lot of hope based opportunities and hope based scenarios, and that they should all be possible as part of the gameplay. Otherwise, people are not going to have much of an incentive to play the game at all.
Mm.
Right. So introducing those particular hope based opportunities where people are able to think about and then help visualize success is another element of required design. Then we also want to ensure that people are able to have clear goals in place. Now, goals that are ambiguous or abstract is not going to be helpful. So, clear goals with opportunities that are measurable. You have metrics that helps you track and help you see that you're actually moving towards those particular goals is helpful. Next, one of my realizations is that we should keep a level of abstraction, not make it. I don't mean that we have to make these games terribly complex, but the current day abstractions or the future day abstractions that actually make this entire area or anything that they're designing the game for, what makes it complex and why you're trying to design the game in the very first place, bring that in a way that it can actually be tackled. So what I'm trying to say here is that we should not oversimplify abstractness, and that there is quite a bit of power to keeping fuzzy areas as is without trying to stretch it too much either.
Mm.
Um, and then lastly, introducing role-based mechanisms is, I think, a good element into the gameplay as well, because it really helps people understand and visualize roles as those are defined today. And within roles, there are elements about what actually makes those particular roles possible and defines that particular roles. So amongst the various things, one of those are calling out constraints of that role. In a fantasy world, I can imagine an engineer to do a bunch of things that's like 50 years down the line. In a fantasy world, I can imagine the most idealistic situations or expectations out of elected officials and politicians. But but to bear in mind that it's a lot more complex than that, and that each of these particular roles in an interdependent system has its own set of constraints, and ensuring that we establish that particular set of constraints as well, reasonably well within the game, is going to help people understand the type of boundaries and um, walls that exist, and to kind of push and nudge the people to think about how might we jump over those particular walls, how might we
Mm.
stretch in such a way that we are able to make things possible. So introducing constraints is another thing that I think is very important. And then lastly, I think one of the couple of things that I just want to mention also is introducing perhaps collaborative approaches over competitive elements.
Mm.
While both are super helpful in games based on the different types of games that we see, um, however, I'm calling out an approach to introduce collaborative elements into it, adding politics, showing relationships between stakeholders, helping people identify stakeholders, and then finally creating experiences within the game that allows for people to discuss, to talk, to open up. And which is what actually gets people to step out of the type of shells they think
Mm.
they are in, and we begin to see people now suddenly a lot more comfortable about being able to talk about some of these particular topics
Yeah.
once they finish the gameplay.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, while we were playing the game, now that I recall, the whole collaborative approach is what made the group come in, cohesively together, because we understood the interdependency that we had as one stakeholder group on the other, and it actually bonded us over, and we had some really great discussion, right? It actually probed us to think deeper and think about certain situations more as a group, as a collective group, rather than as a individual groups trying to compete over one another. So really sort of like that bit. Deepak, I want to understand, I've always believed that students from different countries often have varying understandings of key issues like climate change, education, and even cultural context. range of factors, including the educational systems that are there in that particular geography, etc., right? And you have such a varied, extensive experience in multiple geographies. How do you think Indian schools can integrate climate change theme board games in the scheme of things? Do you have any examples, or have you seen any feedback that has come your way that you could share with our listeners to visualize this better?
Sure. So I think one part of all of this, Megha, is just the generic, and especially talking about either K-12 higher education or other types of educational models itself. A lot of insights that have surfaced from just researching into comparative educational delivery approaches or experiential learning approaches, all of those hold true even with context of with even with the context of climate education. Though, like I said earlier, I think the significantly differentiating factor is in introducing games such as energetic or the type of similar board games,
Hmm.
similar gamified approaches that really help people to comprehend a complex topic like climate change or impact on climate. So one big part of it is, I think, to that there is substantial amount of research and findings that are already there that lets us understand how do we think about education in the context of Indian schools.
Hmm.
Now, uh, I think some things that I think that I would still would like to highlight is that the role of co-curricular and extracurricular activities, which tends to be low-hanging fruit for us here, tends to be technically, or rather largely based on what I see, tends to be underutilized. We see a lot of common things that has been there for many decades that continue to exist today, and some examples are sports competitions. Different schools have different teams and they get to compete with each other and then rise up at like a district level, state, national level, and then potentially international level competitions. Other non-sporting activities, such as it could be a debate, it could be quiz, painting, dance, drama, cultural activities, and like a bunch, right? So there are existing models that make it really easy for us to integrate climate related education quite easily.
Hmm.
So the potential barriers to entry is low, is what I'm saying. And so finding our way in through some of those particular models is helpful. And then I think, then we can build on some of those models to think about introducing these type of games to help people learn in creative ways. For example, schools hold movie screening. I remember my own childhood
Yeah.
and being in school when they would show documentaries. Now imagine that I'm seeing a wildlife documentary, and then after I watch that particular video, I also get to play a related game where I'm able to bring this bit of learning from that particular movie, and then play a game where where a bunch of knowledge, perhaps skills, are also deepening. And then I also get to have a discussion with my friends about all this. That's one. Another one is perhaps from my own experience as well. When I was in college, I was very active with a bunch of cultural activities and just enabling a lot of other teams to function well.
Hmm.
So one of the things that I was very interested in and passionate about was dance. Sorry, you were going to say something?
No, no, interesting. I never knew about this.
Okay. Oh, it's not that I danced, which would have been fun, but I was very interested in enabling and making things happen
Hmm. Yeah.
on the organizational side of it. And one of the things that I recall, which was such a powerful medium of delivery, was contemporary dance.
Hmm.
They would pick a theme, and then you would bring in a blend of different styles, if at all, and then help shape share a story. Now, we do see competitions, we do see festivals where people do come in, and then present themes, including topics around earth sciences, environmental sustainability, and cleanliness, etc., etc. Now, imagine again, kind of, that you're able to have this intercollegiate fest. People come in, they experience all this, and then you add elements where people are actually going through a simulation through a board game. And then now suddenly, you're utilizing the power of different types of communication, including things like dance, drama, performing arts, experiential arts, bringing all of those, into combinational type of approaches and getting people to learn about new things. So I think we have these opportunities of using some of these particular existing models, and again, as I said, to look at these as low hanging fruit around co-curricular and extracurricular activities and exploring the knowledge of climate. You also mentioned example of a feedback, and something that I wanted to share, that came from a college in Texas. And I just want to read it out. One is it's coming from a relatively conservative state. Such a powerful feedback, is an incredible opportunity. So I would just like to read it out. So this is from a teaching assistant for an undergraduate class in this particular college, and he says, from the groups that I have seen, everybody is like super confused for the first 10 minutes, but then they catch on immediately. There's just so much inner team communication, especially from the students that are like very standoffish at the beginning and just don't really want to be active as much. They are immediately on it, like telling everybody, advising everybody else about what to do. Everybody plays the roles really well. It's a super exciting thing to see. End quote. I just loved this particular quote. We have seen similar quotes, but I think what makes this particular quote powerful is that this reflects quite a bit of a laymanish perspective. This is not an elite college, but like a regular college, like the one that I actually went to back in India for my pre-university and undergraduate education. And if we are able to get and reach potentially the last mile, with these type of games, I think that is such a tremendous opportunity.
And I think this feedback, Deepak, truly it's actually a description of how I felt as a participant playing that game with a group. Everybody was super confused for the first initial minutes, and then we all came in together, and then we're all sort of giving each other advice, leaning in on our individual experience, understanding from everybody else's, advice, and trying to do collective good for the city, right? And it was.
Yeah.
I think it fostered so much, how should I say, healthy discussion and debate, and truly, learned real world application. And I can imagine if this is done, or something that's adopted in schools, it can do wonders for the young minds, and they can perhaps be more exposed, or made more interested in careers also going forward, because this is something that they will be exposed to earlier on, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So truly agree with you. And one thing I would want to ask Deepak is, how do you think these board games can be adapted to suit different age groups and education levels while still effectively teaching climate concepts?
Yeah. So what I've seen, and I've had a chance to look at Energetic being experienced by different types of audiences, different types of age groups, different sectors, ranging across education to utility, communities, think tanks with high-level intellectuals, engineers, product managers, and just a whole mix of people. Oh yeah, and I should also mention, people like people who do on-ground advocacy, who do on-ground activation of, say, um, lake issues, water issues, or voting rights, and encouraging people to go out and vote and stuff like that. So it's just been a huge mix of people that have had a chance to come in and see them experience the game. So one way that I think board games can be adapted is by being able to add in or remove certain types of levels and certain types of elements that makes it suitable for the different audiences.
Mm.
That's one approach, and we tend to see this quite a bit within games, where you can buy a pack, you can have an add-on, right?
Mm.
And then you can choose what type of an experience you want to have as part of as part of the game. With Energetic, we have only one version. We don't have a feature that allows for people to keep things or remove things.
Mm.
I mean, yes, people can say within the game, for instance, we have different types of energies. And I have known some people who actually play the game by saying that, hey, let's actually look and see how things might turn out if we don't have nuclear in the mix, right? You can definitely do that. So you get an opportunity to control and see how things actually turn out. Now, but with Energetic, the amazing thing is that think of it like a tool
Mm.
in the hands of different types of people. It can be used in different ways. It delivers some primary value, it delivers some fundamental values, and being able to interpret that particular set of outcomes or that particular set of deliverables and adapting it to the and allowing players to interpret it to the type of backgrounds they come from or to the type of purposes they have in mind
Mm.
is hugely possible. So with you can have high school students play this particular game, and for their level of excitement, their level and the type of conversations they tend to engage in, they're able to use the game very well. I have known there is a particular university, New York, where an ethics professor got the game because he thought that discussions around ethics is very interesting in the context of climate. Then you have math professors and math teachers using this particular game. So, within the context of education,
Yes.
again, I think with how you're able to apply and use it, there are different examples.
Mm.
Con Edison, which is the utility, in the state of New York that delivers electricity and gas. It's an energy company in New York. Used the game to help train their own employees, see the future. Think of the alternative of getting your employees to sit through workshops or presentations and lectures, and then trying to actually get them to understand why shifting the nature of the business is critical for the sustainability of that particular business, and for the type of a public value that they're also delivering. So those type of formats around, say, lectures and stuff has a number of limitations where, in fact, within the first 5 to 10 minutes, people will tend to tune out. There is also this huge challenge of people actually worrying about jobs. Can
Mm.
I upskill myself to help deliver a new set of technologies that my company is implementing? And let's say I'm at a particular phase in life where my the amount of time I have to learn something new might also seem limited, right? So now, how do you get all these particular people to come on board and participate in the growth of the particular business? I'm generalizing it here, but then back to the case of Con Edison, they actually use the game to help their own employees see and understand why it is really critical, right? So I mean, these are just like two examples around education and utilities, but then think of similar applications for consulting,
Mm.
for environmental modeling. I had someone who is an environmental analyst who does this type of work day in, day out, around areas of both environment and energy, say how the game actually really, really helped him to talk about this, to talk about it in a way that actually, really helps people uh, to to see things, and the type of language that is also needed for him to explain, um, was something that he thought he got quite a bit of help after he actually played the game. So what I'm trying to say is, in terms of adaptability, at least with energetic, it's one of those things that can be plugged in into different verticals, into different horizontals, and then there are so many different aspects to this that you can choose which ones to focus on and build a set of discussions and build a set of experiences and opportunities for interpretation around those, and then deliver the fit of climate related aspects into that.
Yeah, in fact, while you were talking, Deepak, I could think of multiple permutations and combination within my mind, because starting from universities to office to different functions to different lens, I think the way the game can be utilized to mobilize action or understanding or different end results is endless, right? The
Yeah,
possibilities are endless, right? So that's the beauty of the game.
yeah.
And
Yeah, Mega. Oh, sorry. Well, just one other really good,
Mhm.
example that I do want to add is running the game at a tier 3 institute.
Mhm.
In a tier 3 city, like just an ordinary college, and this is in a tier 3 city in the state of Karnataka, and so you have your students mostly coming from backgrounds of agriculture,
Mhm.
or related professions around that, related experiences around that, and so this is like a town slash village. And what was really amazing, and one of the bit is that their English skills was also quite limited,
Mhm.
because it's not a language they tend to use it on a daily basis. They speak and use the local language of Kannada. However, for academics, and this was an English medium institution, but the students, and I'm at the university level, but the students, I brought the game experience to them, and a good chunk of them also have not traveled out of state. By the way, they were able to really associate, with the elements of the gameplay. They were able to understand the type of
Interesting.
impacts that the game is talking about. The language, there might have been a couple of words where they needed a bit of quick help, but overall, they simply understood the whole thing, and they were able to, and like, they skipped lunch and they wanted to stay significantly beyond playing it. And to me, it was just absolutely amazing, right? And we did not have to do any tweaks to the game to bring this particular experience to them.
Yeah, interesting because, and this is a perfect example of when we say that climate change or decarbonization or these things really are a universal topic, right? People from different backgrounds, from different age groups, from different time and era really understand what's happening and they want to participate in the process. And I think Energetic gives them that opportunity, at least at the place that they are in, right? And that's the beauty of it, right? So, and what you said is an example because if it was something that they were not really enjoying or were interested in, you wouldn't have gotten that kind of feedback, right? Or that response.
Yeah,
So, it shows that everybody wants to sort of be exposed or, be a participant in that process,
right.
right? And it makes me think, right, with this society evolving now, or even the different kind of audience that there are, the board games are actually trying to innovate, right? They're trying to either adapt themselves to a way that they can cater to different kind of audience, or they're trying to go beyond traditional formats and incorporating new elements like technology, narrative, storytelling. So much is happening. I wanted to understand from you, what future innovations or trends do you foresee in using board games for climate education, and how might that really enhance the learning outcomes?
Yeah, I think one significant opportunity that we're going to see is from emerging technologies. So the growth in AI, things such as say AR, VR, right? I think we're going to see a lot of that come in the form of games,
Hmm.
in incorporation within games, and to help really deliver climate related education really well. I'm very excited, and as of like quite recently, I'm also thinking and like looking at bringing in a lot of elements around generative AI,
Hmm.
for instance. So from a concept standpoint, I think we are have this opportunity for people to connect their like I earlier I spoke about this real world matching, right, and real world mapping, the kind of an experience that people have when they're playing the board game, and how they are able to imagine things in their own heads, and the type of discussions they're having with the other players, and the type of just the personal experience they're going through, and the team and the group experience that they're going through.
Hmm.
I think of tech innovations coming in to help show this particular, like help fill this particular gap, and help people actually experience it in a lot more immersive ways. Augmented reality, for
Hmm.
instance, in my head, I'm able to use AR to think about a new piece of furniture in my living room.
Yeah.
Now think of, in the context of a board game, have done I've spent billions of dollars within the game on installing a bunch of production technologies and storage technologies, and but then collectively the city or the world hasn't made the type of progress that we should. A storm comes through and then rips the type of an installation that we have done. My
Hmm.
entire thing has now gone to waste. Now there is one part of this that's in my head, but imagine that through a tech immersive experience, I'm actually able to see those particular infrastructure fall to the ground, and the type of an impact and the type of feelings that I'm going to have to
That'll be very cool.
absorb this. So tech innovations, I think, is like one big part of this. AI and generative AI is going to help us make use of a lot of the data that these particular games have the potential to produce, to deliver value for the people who are actually playing the game, for those who, let us say, design policies and implement policies.
Hmm.
um, think of simulations and testing where you are curious about how people are going to react to a particular policy change, and will it kind of have the type of an impact that it should over the next couple of years, and you get people to play the game, and that's going to be a strong indicator to help you make that particular decision about particular types of implementation. So the other aspect of this, along with tech innovation, I think, is that bit of social changes and social experiences that you also mentioned, Megha.
Hmm.
We have the opportunity to see re-engineering and new types of experiences coming through over there. One big part of all of this that I think these innovations and the type of trends it can actually create, the big opportunity over there, I think, is in hitting the reset button, or kind of just, or perhaps, okay, even if not hitting the reset button, think of people's expectations around reality from, let us say, politicians,
Hmm.
or from the use of a a solution or a tool around them, and that being a lot more realistic than what it is today, and ensuring that they're also voicing it out. They're bringing out that particular elements, when they make those particular product decisions, voting decisions about what things, feedback decisions. And to me, the exciting aspect is holding people accountable. Prior to, I think, playing this type of game, and then you roll in all these innovations, people have this opportunity to understand what all of this might mean. And now suddenly, they're not going to take anything at face value. They're not going to take something at the oral value that it has been delivered to them. But now that people can actually use tools such as these particular board games to visualize what a particular policy or what a particular product can actually do, for their own future, they will hold people accountable. I hope, and realistically, I expect that if we see huge adoption of these type of tools, these type of board games, we will see a more aware and educated population that is, and whose social context, political, economic, and environmental relationships as well, all of that kind of jumping, not just by one or two levels, but by multiple levels, and something that I'm very, very hopeful about.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of time, and it's such a beautiful thing and perspective that you've given, Deepak, because as somebody who is by profession a communications professional, I think this, to my mind, becomes and is such a powerful tool for policy, advocacy, right?
Yeah.
We were only thinking about it, and perhaps I was only thinking about it as an educational tool, but this is such a important or such a powerful tool to have that kind of conversation happening at the ground level, so that people can ask or hold their governments accountable, because now they're experiencing it firsthand through a board game, right? And then
Yeah.
they, this is great perspective, and I think I'm going to perhaps read or think about it more. But I really hope that we do reach a point where we're innovating, or people are really utilizing this as a tool to start conversation, and the adaptability really increases. More and more people get to experience this.
Yeah.
Actually, we've spoken a lot today, Deepak. Anything that you would want to leave our listeners with?
Definitely. One of the something that I celebrate as part of this particular game, and maybe a couple of similar experiences that I've had, is the opportunities around reinforcing fundamental skills that are essential to succeed in any organization, succeed in everyday life, have joyful experiences at home. So and the fundamental skills that I'm talking about are things such as collaboration, being able to prioritize, being able to make decisions with limited amount of data. Right? Now, tend to a lot of these mentions also tends to happen, say, within a corporate environment, or within, say, employee performance evaluation, or say in the education system, someone actually wants to come and deliver a workshop on effective communication skills, and neither students nor educators are able to fully articulate what that actually means. But I think we have an opportunity to surface the criticality of these type of skills with these board games. So I really encourage people to come and experience these type of tools, along with, say, climate education or any other game, if they are delivering knowledge or delivering a particular experience on whatever topic they're talking about. Outside of that, these games have an opportunity to really instill and give and help people actually practice a set of skills that are just so critical to develop as part of just everyday daily life. So I would really urge people to come in, and explore these games for that particular purpose. Um, I one other big aspect, and my own not discovery perhaps, but my own real breakthrough and something new that I was able to develop is a sense of empathy towards politicians. So
I hear you.
how
Yeah.
so energetic. After playing the game, one of my first reactions was that, damn, the role of politicians is really, really hard. Right? It's a job.
Yeah.
And when we do jobs, we want to get promoted, we want to do well, we have career aspirations, we have so many things around it, right? And it's the same for politicians, to whom this is a job. And it's a very different type of a job with a different set of rules. If you don't win an election, then you're not potentially having that big of a role to play. That can also generate an income, and so now suddenly the type of financial connections that we see in real world and real life start beginning to make sense. I mean, without going into too much of the complexities around that, my big realization was how complicated the job of politicians are. And from this, what also arose out of the gameplay is the type of interactions that are actually needed for ensuring collaborations between different people to tackle climate problems or to tackle any other type of a similar complex problem around sustainability or complex problems in general. The inclusion of people, identifying the right type of stakeholders, recognizing that there are no perfect decisions, and then approaching that set of complex problems with a willingness to even tackle it, I think is something that these games do really well. And I'm very proud that Energetic as a game does that really well. Something that I think, I mean, the takeaway here that I want to resurface is an opportunity to develop empathy in areas that you still haven't recognized are important. So you will walk away with both new new terminologies, um, new stakeholders, and understanding the type of role that they play, while also being able to extend that particular learning about empathy and bringing that to the type of rules around us that currently are there, and how we might be able to make the best use of those.
Interesting. Um, Deepak, before we conclude, I wanted to understand how can somebody lay their hands on the game if somebody would want to introduce this in their own universities, organizations, home? How can they really get access to this game? Is this available? Is there a way that you would want to tell our listeners if they would want to, experience the game by themselves?
Yes, definitely. The game right now is sold online through our website. So
Mhm.
search for City Atlas and navigate to Energetic, and you'll be able to land on the link to buy the game. We also have an online version which is currently available on Steam. So that's, and you've got to download Tabletop Simulator to play the game there. And one of the things that we're going to be bringing out in the pretty immediate future of sorts is getting the digital version of the game on a separate independent platform too. But as of now, people can actually go on Steam as well and play. However, I think one of the biggest things that I would encourage and urge people is to play the game in person, because I think this is both a complex topic as well as just the joy of playing in person. While the world allows for us to play in person, is a tremendous opportunity.
And I can truly, truly vouch for that.
Thanks, Megha.
Um, Thank you for joining us today, Deepak. I mean, I really enjoyed our conversation. It has given me some new perspective about how board games can not only just invigorate that curiosity further, educate us further, but it can also be a good policy tools and, like you said, foster empathy and much more understanding about the roles of the governance, right? So in that sense, I love the conversation today. For our audience, thank you for tuning in. We hope this episode sparks some new curiosity in you, and if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to share it with your friends, family, and I will add a link to access or buy the game yourself. And please experience this. Like I said, I can vouch for it. It's a wonderful educational and entertainment experience. Well, that wraps up another adventure for me. Until next time, keep exploring and